Conference realignment has become a huge topic in college football, and one of the schools that is always mentioned as a future Power 4 team is the Memphis Tigers. They have a rich history in basketball, have been really good at football over the last 15 years, and also have an extremely large business backing them up in FedEx. It's also located in a big city, and there's really not a reason why Memphis isn't a Power 4 team. Except, as conference realignment moves forward and more programs find their new conference homes, the Tigers are always left out. It was reported last week that Memphis offered a $200 million deal to go to the Big 12. But I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to do a deep dive into Memphis football, talk about their history, why they can't seem to get into a Power 4 program, and what the future looks like for the Tigers. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about Memphis football. So in order to understand why Memphis made a $200 million offer and it got denied, we first need to go back in time. They first started playing football in 1912 under the name of West Tennessee State Normal School. They would eventually join the Southern Intercollegiate Athletics Conference in 1934, and that's the conference that pretty much had every big-time college football program in the South, including a lot of SEC and ACC schools. After spending a few years there, they would rename themselves to Memphis State University in 1941 and eventually became an independent. They would stay an independent until 1968 when they would join the Missouri Valley Conference, but during that entire time frame, Memphis State was pretty bad. They won 3 conference championships in 1929, 1930, and 1938, but they would not make an official bowl game until 1971 when they made the Pasadena Bowl after going a measly 5-6. But they ended up winning the Missouri Valley Conference that year. Back then, the MVC looked a lot like Old Conference USA, as they had teams like Cincinnati, North Texas, and Louisville, but Memphis State was nowhere near the talent levels of those schools despite being located in a prime recruiting territory. They'd have a handful of good seasons as an independent, where they'd go 9-1 like they did in 1949, or 8-2 like they did in 1961, but until they joined another conference and made that bowl game in 1971, they had not reached the postseason. They'd spend 5 years in the Missouri Valley from 1968 to 1972, and they'd win 3 conference titles before deciding to go independent again. They would bounce back and forth between being pretty good and pretty bad, until they would join Conference USA in 1996, and they settled on being bad. From 1996 to 2012, the entire time that Memphis was there, they never won a conference title, and they failed to make the conference title game even just once. What was keeping them above water was their basketball team, which had made the national championship in 1971 and 2007, and was considered one of, if not the best mid-major programs in the country. This whole time, Memphis was trying really hard to get into the Big 12. They made a push for membership alongside BYU, Louisville, and New Mexico in 1996 to try to create the Big 16, but after New Mexico pulled out, they were not able to make the jump. Throughout the 2000s and early 2010s, they continued talking to the Big 12 in order to try to find a way in. At the same time, their rivals in Cincinnati and Louisville had left Conference USA to join the Big East as they had lost some of their key members. Memphis didn't have the football history that Cincinnati or Louisville did, so they were not able to make a good enough case to join the league. South Florida, which had just started playing football in 1997, literally jumped Memphis for a place in the Big East after Miami left for the ACC, and the conference wanted another team from the state of Florida. Despite that, their football team made a pretty big jump eventually. The Big East would fall apart before they could join, so they ended up joining the American Athletic Conference. But finally in 2014, Memphis football would get going, as Justin Fuente was their head coach, and they won their first conference title since the 70s after going 10-3. Ever since then, Memphis has been one of the bigger group of 5 brands in college sports, as their basketball program was solid, took a little bit of a dive, and now they've done well under Penny Hardaway, and he's brought them back to the NCAA tournament consistently now. On the football field, Memphis continued to get better, even as their rivals left for other conferences. Louisville left for the ACC in 2014, and Memphis was once again left behind by their rivals. They kept pushing to get into the Big 12 though, and they were reportedly one of 5 or 6 teams in the running to be added to the Big 12 in 2016 when they were thinking about expanding. They'd already lost Nebraska, Colorado, Mizzou, and A&M, but the Big 12 didn't expand and decided to stay with just West Virginia and TCU, who they added in 2012. Coach Fuente went 26-23 with the Tigers in 3 years, and then left for Virginia Tech in 2015. So then the Tigers would hire Arizona State offensive coordinator Mike Norvell to be their head man. Coach Norvell would also have a lot of success, going 38-15 from 2016 to 2019, but he went 0-3 in bowl games. They made the conference title 3 straight years though, and then you take the Florida State job in 2020. After Norvell left, they would make Ryan Silverfield their head coach, who was already on the staff, and he's been okay. When Silverfield has been the head coach, the Big 12 went right back to trying to expand after they lost both Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. They went back to their shortlist from 2016, and Memphis was right up there with some of the other schools, but the Big 12 instead decided to go with Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF instead of Memphis. They chose independent BYU because of their huge fan base, and Houston was a former conference school, and UCF is sort of one of the new shiny toys in college football and would be an expanded market down in Florida. Sadly, Memphis was not as attractive as those 4 schools and was probably the first team left out. Since then, Memphis has turned down membership to the new Pac-12, and now many are thinking they're trying to join the ACC. That wasn't until recently, when it came out a couple of days ago, that Memphis had come to the Big 12 with a huge lucrative deal that would have made them members of the conference. They proposed an offer that would have paid the Big 12 $200 to $250 million over a 5-year stretch. Memphis president Bill Hardgrave reportedly spent over a year putting together the proposal, which explains why the university turned down the Pac-12's offer. But where did that money come from? You'd think a school that's had recent success like Memphis has had would have some money in their pockets, but unfortunately it's just not true. USA Today has a page dedicated to sports revenues, and back in March of 2024, when it was last updated, Memphis reported a gross athletic department revenue of just over $62 million. That seems like a lot, but this is actually lower than the 3 other American schools had before they had joined the Big 12. Houston had $78 million, Cincy had $83 million, and UCF had $89 million. Memphis's money is actually behind UNLV and Colorado State, and this money instead was going to come from some of Memphis's sponsors. According to Eric Buckinger at Forbes.com, Memphis reportedly had sponsorship offers from FedEx, Lowe's, and AutoZone, who would not just pay their entry fees into the conference, but literally be paying the Big 12 to take them. They'd also be built-in sponsor partners for the entire conference, no more questions asked. There were also some reports that Memphis's pitch to the Big 12 was that they wouldn't receive a dime of conference payout from the Big 12 for 5 years either. They basically would be playing for free just to get their foot in the door. And part of their proposal was that if the conference didn't feel like they had added any value after the 2031 season, they could be kicked out with no strings attached. If this sounds familiar, it's because it's remarkably similar to the proposal that the ACC accepted from SMU. Donors would pony up money to buy SMU a spot in the ACC, and they're pretty much playing for free in that conference for a few years. Obviously, it worked out pretty well for them as they made the ACC title game and had a college football playoff berth in just their first year as a member. Memphis sees that and wants to do the same thing. The power conferences are shrinking, and Memphis must not see the ACC as a long-term goal, as it seemingly is Big 12 or bust, like it has been for the last 30 years. The problem is, at least right now, it's bust. Big 12 presidents got together to discuss the possibility of adding Memphis, but would decide against it. One anonymous Big 12 administrator reportedly said, quote, "We vetted Memphis when we added the other 4, and we chose not to add them. What's changed now?" But just because the Big 12 shot down this proposal right now doesn't mean that it'll stay that way forever. Ross Dellinger was careful to say that the Big 12 only turned down Memphis at this time, and that means after some improvements, they could find themselves in the Big 12 after all. Also, they do have some good things to provide the Big 12 conference. We already know how good their basketball program is. They're not just a one-off team, but instead one of the most consistent Group of 5 programs in all of college basketball, and they have a strong legacy. While Penny Hardaway is helping the basketball team, Ryan Silverfield is making the football team one of the best in the Group of 5 as well, as he's gone 42-21 since 2019. They might not have the legacy of 100 years, but they are turning it on at the right time, just like UCF did before they were added to the Big 12. Over the last 10 years, or around the start of the college football playoff era, the Memphis football team has gone 89-40. They've been to 18 bowls in their team history, and 16 of those have come in the last 25 years. Of those 16 games, they are 7-8, with the 2021 Hawaii Bowl getting canceled. 7 of those bowl games were against teams that were or are now power conference teams, and honestly, that doesn't look too bad. Memphis may not have a lot to add to the conference right now, but their push to become members of the Big 12 was basically them betting on themselves. They think that they could instantly elevate their program just by joining a power conference, and they already have a pretty large stadium with 60,000 people at the Liberty Bowl. It isn't a great facility, and it's pretty far from campus, but with some care, it could definitely host Power 4 football. It also gives the Big 12 a program in the Deep South, since Memphis is part of Tennessee, which is a conference that only has 2 power conference schools in it. The Memphis metro area is also very much near Arkansas and Mississippi, which would be 2 new markets for the Big 12, sort of how Cincinnati also gave them Ohio and Kentucky. Their addition would trigger an influx of donors, meaning they could instantly pour more money into the facilities or the NIL budgets in order to put themselves on par with other teams in the Big 12. It also gives Cincinnati an old rival back and continue the trend of the Big 12 dominating at college basketball. Memphis obviously will not be added right now, but if they continue to grow, I think they're eventually going to get there. I've always thought Memphis is a natural fit in the Big 12 or in pretty much any Power 4 conference, so I'm not sure why they denied him, but I'm also not on the Big 12 conference's board. I think they pretty much check every box for a new expansion Power 4 team, but that's just me. What do you guys think though? Why do you guys think Memphis was denied a spot in the Big 12? Do you think they have Power 4 potential? And what other programs should I do a spotlight on next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.